Hello and welcome to another episode with Chat with Ty. Today is going to be Talking Sports episode 5. Today we're going to be talking about professional mascoting with Blair Kelly. Why don't you tell me a little bit more about yourself, Blair? Tell us a fun fact about yourself.
Hey, Tyler. Yeah, my name's Blair. It's a girl's name, but I am a dude. My fun fact about myself is I can ride a unicycle, and that has played into my work as a mascot.
Absolutely. That's a challenging thing to do. Tell me about how you started mascoting in the first place.
Yeah, you bet. I've always loved performance and entertainment. I was in band and theater and choir in high school, and I was in the drum line in the marching band in college at the University of Minnesota, and would be at every sporting event and saw our mascot Goldie Gopher at every game, every football game, basketball game, hockey game. And I just loved that performance and watching all that. And I thought to myself, I could do that, and I could do that better than that guy. So tried out at the University of Minnesota and started my mascot career there in college.
All right, absolutely. It's always the mentality of, I see this other person doing this and it looks fun and I feel like I can do better. So that's an interesting take. So you kind of covered this. How did you first start? But how did you first start in mascoting professionally?
So in college, we had to try out to be on the mascot team, to be on the Goldie team. And it was a pretty extensive tryout. We were actually considered athletes at the University of Minnesota. We were like D1 athletes on the Spirit Squad. That just makes me laugh because if you were to see me, you'd know I'm not a D1 athlete, but I have a letter at the University of Minnesota from mascotting, and I absolutely fell in love with it. And after I graduated college, I actually went to college for engineering. I have an engineering degree from the U of M, but fell in love with mascoting and followed that to an internship in Indianapolis with the Indianapolis Colts. Worked there for a year studying the craft of mascoting, if you will, from one of the best, if not the best in the business at the Indianapolis Colts. And really just what I fell in love with in college, I just learned I learned that I really was passionate about in Indianapolis, and just grew there professionally and learned a lot from my mentor there.
Absolutely. I feel like college is a great place for you to not just learn things, but also finding your passion. College is all about exploring different options for me personally.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I think the most that I learned from college was learning how to learn, like learning how your brain works best, how you work on a team, how you like to study, but also how you manage that with your personal life. I mean, that's what college is all about. And I was very lucky to find, a passion of mine in college. I wasn't thinking about this in high school or anything. I wasn't like a mascot in high school, and I didn't ever want to, be a mascot when I grew up. I had no idea that was even a job. But college and the University of Minnesota and Goldie Gopher, like that's a huge part of who I am now. And that's something that I just learned, in 2 years at the university. So I'm super grateful for that time. And like you said, it's where you really learn about a lot about yourself. It was a great experience for me.
So now we're going to dive in a little bit deeper onto the day-to-day operations for a professional mascot. Can you tell me a little bit more about what is your day-to-day work like on a typical day that's no game is going on?
Yeah, definitely. So you bring up a great point with game day versus non-game day. A lot of people say this about their jobs, but one thing that I really do love about what I do is every day looks different for me. There are days when I'm in costume or in suit pretty much all day long performing. And then there are days where I don't touch the costume at all, and I'm at a desk and I'm wearing dress clothes and I'm in the office and I'm just talking to my coworkers and I'm in budget meetings and planning sessions just as any other 9-to-5 office employee would look. So it really is kind of like the Clark Kent and Superman. There's like two different work lives with it, really. And that's fun to me. I really like that. There will be days where I'm in the mascot van driving all over the state, doing appearances, hours away from my stadium. And then there are days when I can work from home and I'm on the computer all day. Yeah, so really no perfect like average day, but in season versus out of season is pretty big difference. We get some long days where I'm in the office working a day and then have a game that night. So it can be a total grind, but this is a very unique job, and I'm the only person that has this title at my team, and it's very fun.
I fully understand there's a significant difference between the off season, during the season, in season, game day, and non-game days. So we kind of covered the kind of office-like environment part of working as a professional mascot. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about how the game days are like. So can you walk me through how you prepare for the game days? When do you start and how do you prepare for it?
Yeah, totally. I think a lot of people think of the mascot pretty much only when they see them at a game. And that might be shooting a t-shirt or, just like walking around the concourse or whatever it is. And they might think like, oh yeah, this is just some kid signed up to do this and is only doing it for a couple hours. That's true for some positions. A lot of minor league teams don't have full-time mascots, and even some professional teams don't. But where I work, I'm every single aspect of the mascot that you might think of, I have pretty much complete responsibility for. So things from social media to, obviously doing the game or doing a community appearance at a hospital. Like that is me not only performing in the mascot costume, doing the event, but also coordinating that event and speaking with the contact and getting the vehicles needed to get there and any other giveaways or items or press release that might be around that event. Like I have had to touch every single piece of that. So when we look at a game day in particular, if you see my character on the field shooting a t-shirt or running a promo, like a mascot race or something like that, that required coordination beforehand. That wasn't just that moment in the costume doing the event. So that's something that I love about the job, is that I get that opportunity to perform and entertain, which is what I'm passionate about. But I also develop real job skills that are applicable outside of being a mascot, with the coordination and the execution of those things. So for example, I have a giant, we call it the Gatling gun, this like giant cannon that shoots all these t-shirts, like 30 t-shirts in the span of like 6 seconds. It's ridiculous. It's super loud. It's super visual. It's this great promotion during each one of our home games. And there's a lot of aspects to that. It's sponsored. So our local partner has its name all over this gun. And I was a part of that deal to make that happen. I don't work in sales. I didn't broker the deal, but I was a part of explaining what this is, how it looks to fans, what it's worth. So the fact that it's sponsored, like I had a part of that sponsorship deal, which you might not think of when you think of a mascot performer or a mascot supervisor, which is my title. But I get to work with sponsors and partners for things like that. As far as the execution of the gun, I'm responsible of the team that helps get it into place and fire it and load it. And it's also, it operates off of compressed CO2, these like large CO2 tanks. I have to physically procure those. I have to order them. I have to get them delivered. I have to carry them to the gun, load them in, change them out with a wrench. It's all pressurized and powered by essentially a marine battery. There's like all these things, all these little details that make a 10-second promo go off, and people are just like, oh, that was fun. That's my full-time job. These are a ton of moving pieces to make it work. Yeah, I'll be in costume. I'll be in suit for the whole entire game, but everything that I'm doing there required a lot of work to get ready. So yeah, that's a lot of the kind of just like the 30,000 foot view of looking at it. But as far as each game itself, I mean, we have an extensive pregame before every game that lasts over an hour that I'm a part of, and then all the way through to if we win a game, I have a post-game victory celebration. So that can be a span of like just about 4 to 6 hours, depending on the game, straight of being in costume, on top of all the preparation to make that game happen. So it gets to be a lot. It gets to be a grind at the end of the season. We're all tired. but it's a whole heck of a lot of fun. And it's just about, being out there with the fans and sharing the excitement about not only the team, but everything else that's included with going to a game. And mascot's a big part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely feel that all of the preparation that we put into presenting the game and making the fans feel special, sometimes, a lot of times, fans doesn't realize how much effort that is put into it. But it's always worth it for me personally when I see a fan really just smile and enjoy their game. And I love it when kids come up and wants to take a picture with you and do all that kind of stuff, because I know that we're doing something that makes their day. And that's the reward kind of that I'm looking for working in like hospitality side of sports.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, that's the best part of the job. We get to do work that other people go to for their fun. And that's a double-edged sword, because it's awesome to be able to give that to people, and to somebody has a rough day at work, but then they come to one of our games and they see the mascot and it makes them smile. Like, that's awesome that we get to do that. That's the great part of it. The difficult part of it is a lot of times when I'm talking to people outside of sports, it's like hard to be taken seriously, kind of, because they're like, oh, you work at this fun place, all you do is fun and it's easy and fun, and you get, like, you're so lucky you get to do that. And yes, I am lucky and I'm extremely grateful to be able to do my job, but it's also a lot of work, kind of like we were just saying, and that a lot of time goes unnoticed, I think, just because of the nature of the business that we work in. So yeah, it's kind of interesting to look at both sides of it. But like you said, when you make a kid smile, I mean, as cheesy as it sounds, like that there really is no more fun thing to be doing. And when you're in a mascot costume and you know how to perform as a mascot, making a kid smile is a pretty common thing. And that never gets old. That's a good reward.
Yeah, it's not just kids. Anyone can have a good time taking a picture with the mascot or interacting with the mascot. So you mentioned that it's always long days for game days on a game day. What keeps you energetic? What keeps you energized? Is it a lot of caffeine or some secret sauce that you have been keeping from?
Dude, that is a great question. That's different for every person. I have gotten to know a lot of mascots, collegiate and professional, and I'm grateful for that. It's an interesting group of people, but mostly, I'd say, just like any group, there are some odd ducks, but we really have it's a really a good group of folks I've gotten to know in this industry. I have a dude that works in my market that's been just crushing it for years. He's somebody I look up to greatly, and he shoots like a 5-hour energy and then chases it with a Red Bull before every game. This dude's nuts, and he performs like crazy. He's super good, but I can't do that. I honestly really don't do any caffeine. I drink green tea, and I'll drink like an iced tea during a hot game, but that's not really doing any like chemical kick for me. My approach is just mindset. So there are some games where, maybe I'm having a bad day or I'm exhausted, and it is a little harder to get into that high gear. But usually when you put the full costume on, for me, and you step out and you see fans, it's just flipping a switch. It really isn't that hard to get the juice going. And from my, I look at this, I'm by no means an actor, but like I said, I kind of grew up like doing theater and stuff. I look at this as playing a character, right? And that's exactly what it is. The mascot it's like Mickey Mouse, right? It has its own persona, its own character. It has things that it likes and things that it doesn't like. I'm not me when I go out and perform. So even if Blair's having a bad day, the mascot isn't. And it's just, you have to put that in your head that you're playing a part, and that character is out there to entertain the fans and to have a good time with the fans. And that's that's where it's at. I will say the last piece on that for me, I work with a team that I manage every game, and it's like a small group of us for every game, and that's like one of, if not the most favorite part of my job for me, is working with this group. And so I get a lot of energy from them, just talking, even when I'm out of costume, just catching up with people, laughing with them. It's really a tight-knit group that we have, and I'm super grateful for them. And so that also gives me a lot of energy. if you're around people that you enjoy being around, there's just that natural buzz that keeps you going. And especially when you're in a ballpark or a stadium, it's kind of an electric atmosphere already. So getting that energy from the fans, but especially from this tight group of folks I work with, that's extremely helpful for me.
Yeah, absolutely. There's something about being around people that you believe in and you trust. It creates that synergy that ultimately excels everyone's performance. And I find it really interesting that you mentioned that every single time you step into the costume, it becomes someone else. That's a really good point, and something that I feel like a lot of athletes need to learn is keeping the work-life separation going. Because previously I was talking to a former college athlete who mentioned that one of the most important things for him once he's retired is keeping having the mindset that he is someone else outside the sports, instead of having the sport he played define who he is. So that's something I believe is very important to learn for every single person, because you don't want to be just sucked into your work too much and just forget who you are as a person.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I mean, like you were saying about your friend that you interviewed, someday when you hang up your cleats or whatever it is, when you're done with the sport, you are a person outside of that. And so not only keeping those separate to make your performance better on the field or in the mascot costume or whatever it is, but also there's a day where I'm not going to be able to do what I'm doing for my job, right? And I'm going to have to work in a different role. And if I am completely 100% identifying myself and my life as this mascot, like that's going to spell disaster for when I'm done. So yeah, there's a lot to what you're saying there. Your performance is elevated when you're able to entirely focus on that when you're in the costume or playing your sport. But you're setting yourself up for success when you can keep those things separate and keep your personal existence and life going strong as well.
Absolutely. So we talked about all of the pros and cons, some of the pros and cons of working as a mascot. You get the energy and the joy from seeing kids smile, and also the cons of the long hours and the constant grind during season. Can you expand a little bit more and tell us more personally for you, what's the best part of the job and what's the worst part of the job?
Yeah, for sure. This is an interesting job for people to hear about, I think, because it's pretty uncommon. I mean, there are only a handful of people doing what I do in my state, and not a very large group doing this in the nation. But I really do think that the best part, kind of touching on it earlier, is having a job where you get to just make other people happy. And if somebody had a terrible day at the office, or you're a plumber and everything went wrong, and you just had a rough day, and you go to a game and you see me, or I'm at your kid's birthday party or whatever it is, that's a pretty special thing to be able to make you forget about that and to just have a moment to smile. I think one thing that comes to my mind when I hear this question is something that my former boss at the Colts used to tell me. And that was, we do a lot of hospital visits and a lot of like nonprofit events for, children and families that are underserved or in need in our community. And so a mascot hospital visit, that's something that's really special. And my boss used to say, best part of this job is, you go to a hospital and you see a kid who's very sick, and you can make them smile or make them laugh, even if it's just for 5 minutes. And if they're in a hospital bed, that's huge, and hearing from families like, oh, my daughter hasn't smiled like that in 6 months or something like that. And it's just a dude in a costume, that's so special. And I'll have people at games or at appearances, people will come up to me and they'll hug me, and we'll just be in that embrace, like maybe 5 or 10 seconds. And you can kind of just tell, like, oh, this person like needs some love right now. And the fact that they feel comfortable coming up to this character that they're familiar with and that they know is a positive thing because they're associating it, like we were saying, with fun, with entertainment. The fact that they can feel comfortable and be like, I need this right now. They're not thinking about, oh, this is a stranger in here. or who is this person? They're not thinking that. They're like, nope, I feel comfortable. This is what I need. This makes me happy. That's such a gift. So that positivity, there's the fact that there's so much positivity at the base level associated with what I do. That's awesome. And I'm very, very grateful for that type of mindset with my work. So yeah, that makes like any negative kind of not so bad, but there are negatives just like with any job. I think personally, the hardest thing for me is the fact that in this role, you don't really, nobody else in your workplace really, does it or like knows much about it, which is part of what makes it so interesting for people, but it also makes it a little difficult when you have struggles, right? I mean, if you're a computer programmer, your boss theoretically at some point, did your job, right? Like there's like a hierarchy and you'll kind of move up the chain. Just like if you're an engineer and you're like a project manager, there's or maybe you're an engineer 1, engineer 2, and then a project manager, whatever it is. Usually the person that you're reporting to has done your job. And so they can help you, oh, I'm having trouble with this code. Can you help me? Yes, of course I can. I used to do that. Here's where your problem is, that type of thing. With this role, professional mascots report to marketing directors or community directors or game day directors, and rarely ever report to somebody who was a professional mascot, right? So that just in and of itself comes with a little bit of difficulty in the workplace, not because I don't get along with the people that I work with. I have a fantastic team and I have a fantastic manager that I love to death. There's just, a little bit of, it's almost like a language barrier, just because the people that I work with have never done and never will do my job. So, if I have a game where I sweat 8 pounds of water out of my body and I have a meeting the next morning and I have some struggles or I need some help, that isn't something that a lot of my team really can relate to or sees on a day-to-day basis. So, like I said, making kids happy or seeing that kid in the hospital vastly outweighs the cons, but I think that's just a little bit of a unique difficulty in this exact role that probably doesn't happen too often elsewhere.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like obviously everyone needs someone to look up to, and also being a symbol of positivity is definitely one of the pros of being a professional mascot. Personally, I feel the hardest part of your job as well, because it's the part of your identity that no one else can really speak to, because it's not really relatable. And being a foreign student in a different country, a lot of the times I found it really hard to talk to all of my American friends about how I'm feeling, being so far away from home and not being able to feel comfortable being here, because I know that I don't really belong here yet. And there's always that struggle with my own identity as well. It's the loneliness that you feel because not a lot of people understand how or what we're going through. So I definitely feel the hardest part of your job being not able to relate to other people, and your supervisors and managers don't really understand what you're going through because they've never been you.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great parallel. I feel like that's a lot more difficult what you're explaining than what I'm going through, but I appreciate the comparison.
I understand there's a lot of things that go into mascotting, a lot of preparation, takes a lot of effort, and obviously it takes a good opportunity and fate to intervene for someone to become a professional mascot, because there's only so much mascot in the nation, as you mentioned before. So on that topic, what's some of the advices and suggestions that you would give someone else who is also looking to pursue a career as a professional mascot?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I can only speak to my personal experience and the folks that I've met, and just gleaned a little bit from their experience. But there's a different path to this job for every person. I have a little bit of a unique one. Like I mentioned earlier, I wasn't ever thinking about being a mascot in high school or even when I started college. So I got my degree in engineering that I was just going to do as just a regular person, and then kind of fell into this along the way. My advice would be to, if you're interested in going to school beyond high school, definitely getting a degree in something that you're passionate about and comfortable about, and not necessarily, there is no degree for mascoting, right? There's nothing like that. Your college degree isn't really going to affect anything for this role. So I would say study something that you enjoy, and that you could get a job in that you'd be happy working in, because that's like a fail safe. That's a plan B, right? I can go back to engineering if I need to. So that's there for me. If you study, if you're a mechanic, like whatever it is, like just something that you love, just have that ready to go, because if you break your leg, the team might drop you. It depends on where you're at. So I always have to have that in the back of my mind. Like there's a day is going to come where I can't physically do this job anymore. So I got to be ready for plan B. So I would say if you're interested in, 4-year degree, 2-year degree, whatever, just study something that you're passionate about, just have that ready to go. Beyond that, if you do go to college, definitely try out for your mascot team. There's a different setup at every school for how that looks. I went to a school with a really popular mascot character that helped me greatly. So do all that you can in school to be a college mascot, if that's what you want to do. Outside of that, there are lots of opportunities in minor league sports, whether it's minor league baseball or, G League basketball or, whatever it is, smaller local teams. If you reach out to them, chances are good that they could use help in their mascot role. Just because it's a demanding position, they won't have a full-time person. They'll need backups for their performers, everything. There should be an opportunity for you to, if you're passionate and if you have the ability to perform in the costume, to get that chance. And then just keeping at it, And then networking is huge too. Like if you reach out to folks other than myself, myself included, but like I said, everybody's going to have a different path. So the more folks that you reach out to, the more information you're going to learn, the more tips you're going to get, and you'll probably even get connected, with an opportunity to get into a costume somewhere. So those are probably the biggest things. If you're going to a college or a university and you're interested in mascotting, definitely try out for your team there. Definitely look into minor league opportunities around you locally, and then just expanding that network as best as you can. This is a pretty tightly knit group of professional mascots, and we like to look out for each other. So if we have somebody reach out that's passionate and, they're responsible and they got a good head on their shoulders, we're usually pretty excited to kind of show them the ropes or to give them some advice. And then lastly, it's a very physical job. So I'm not like a big dude. I'm not jacked or anything like that, but I do take care of my body to be able to do the work that I do. So that is, you don't need to bench 400 pounds or anything like that, but there is something that in the business we call suit shape. Like you need to be in suit shape by the season, because you're going to be sweating a lot. It's a very crazy endurance demand. So, just start running, stay healthy, take care of your body, and that'll help you a lot with this job as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like you mentioned a couple of things that is really relatable in just working in any field in general. You always want to be reaching out to people, always be networking, and you never know who you're going to meet and what opportunity is going to come with it. And going back to when we first started talking about going to college, it's all about exploring different options while still having that fail-safe, that backup plan. That's something that you can lean back on if the things that you're exploring doesn't work out. Definitely something interesting to think about. On a side note, I know that you mentioned that if you break a leg, your career might be over because they will be looking for someone else to replace you. Recently, the Ravens mascot just tore his ACL and he was out for the season. What do you think, on your perspective, what do you think is going to happen to him?
That is a great question. I was actually just talking about this last night with a friend of mine. Like I said, tight-knit group. So I actually know that guy out in Baltimore. Yeah, I guess, So the whole like break your leg, lose your job thing, that's a pretty like dramatic example. You know, most teams with their professional full-time mascot, that's not going to happen. Like that's more of just like a worst case scenario, you know, just like any job, you could lose it any day. So that's, I guess, kind of what I was going with there. If I were to break my job, if I were to break my leg, I don't think I'd lose my job. There's always a solution. I know the guy that I was mentioning that drinks the Red Bull before every game, he performed like half of a season with his character in a boot because he broke his ankle. And the whole story was like, oh, the character broke his ankle. And that's okay. You know, he's still going to be at every game, going to be doing everything, but like he's in a boot. So everybody's got a different approach. That guy in Baltimore, I'm not entirely sure what their plan is. It was such a media piece. Like everybody knows that he tore his ACL. I actually think he ruptured the muscle behind his knee as well, whatever that is. But so it was like a pretty bad industry. Like that dude is out. So that's a little difficult because the team has already acknowledged that this happened. So everybody knows. So that'll be interesting to see how they handle that because everybody, it's already all over the media. They know that Poe got hurt. So whether they spin it and they have Poe in a cast or like, I don't know, or if they just hire a backup, or if Poe has his backup just do the season, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, there's kind of like a funny opportunities there with the mascot job because, you know, if Tom Brady breaks his leg, nobody dresses up like Tom Brady and pretends like everything's fine and that it's Tom Brady, right? So like this is such an interesting thing with professional mascots. It's such a unique spot where it's like, yeah, you could have somebody dress up as the Ravens mascot and have them go out and be fine. But in the back of your head, everybody knows like, oh, well, this dude actually blew his ACL, so this is somebody else. So that's really up to the team, you know, and honestly, like their marketing department to be like, hey, here's this opportunity for us to do something really creative and say, you know, Poe's going to be like, however it looks. So that's that's going to be up to them how they want to spin it. But that's a great question. I don't know how they're going to handle that. We'll have to watch together and find out.
Absolutely. On that note, thank you for hopping on today, Blair, and teach us a little bit more about life as a professional mascot.
Thanks for having me, Tyler. Always a pleasure chatting with you. Love you, dude.
This is Chat with Ty. I will see you guys next time.